Every AI benchmark you've seen this year is basically a lie, and the companies publishing them know it. So stick around, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly how they're gaming the numbers and what that means for you when you're actually trying to pick an AI tool that works. Let me start with a simple question. How do you know if one AI is better than another? You probably look at some leaderboard, right? You see Claude beats GPT on this test, Gemini crushes everyone on that benchmark, and you think, okay, that one's the winner. But here's the thing. Those numbers are almost entirely meaningless. The problem starts with what a benchmark actually is. A benchmark is basically a test. You give an AI a bunch of questions or tasks, it tries to solve them, and then you score how many it got right. Sounds straightforward. Except it's not. Because the moment you create a test, you've already made 100 tiny decisions that completely change the outcome. Let's say we're testing whether an AI is good at writing code. Sounds simple, right? But there are so many versions of that question. Are we testing short functions or complex systems? Are we testing in Python or C++ or Rust? Are we grading based on whether the code runs, or whether it's efficient, or whether a junior developer could understand it? Each of those choices tilts the results in a different direction. And guess what? The company that designs the benchmark usually designs it in a way that makes their AI look good. Take a real example. A few months back, OpenAI released a benchmark showing GPT-4 was significantly better than Claude at certain math tasks. Claude's team looked at it and found that the benchmark was specifically constructed in ways that favored how GPT-4 was trained. It wasn't cheating exactly, but it was like designing a swimming competition where one pool is shorter. Technically, the race is fair, but one competitor has an unfair advantage built in. Here's another sneaky thing: data leakage. Most of these benchmarks are public, which means that when a company trains a new AI, there's a decent chance some of that benchmark data ended up in the training set, either directly or in similar form. So the AI isn't really being tested on new problems. It's being tested on things it's already seen variations of. It's like studying the exact same practice test that shows up on the real exam. The score looks great, but it doesn't actually tell you if the AI is smart or just memorized. And then there's the cherry-picking problem. Most major AI labs publish multiple benchmarks, right? Well, they tend to publish the ones where they do well and quietly ignore the ones where they don't. You won't see an OpenAI blog post titled, "Here's where we lose to Claude." So the benchmarks you actually see are already filtered through a layer of marketing. It's selection bias baked into the scientific process. But maybe the biggest lie is that benchmarks measure what you actually care about. Let's be real. You don't care if an AI gets 87% on some abstract reasoning test. You care if it can actually help you do your job. You care if it gives you useful code when you're coding. You care if it writes emails that don't sound like a robot. And those things are almost impossible to measure in a benchmark. I'll give you a concrete example. You can benchmark an AI's ability to summarize text by giving it articles and checking if the summaries are accurate. But that doesn't measure whether the summary is actually useful to you, whether it hits the points you care about, whether it's concise enough for your workflow. A summary that's technically accurate but bloated and full of jargon might score perfectly on a benchmark but be useless in real life. So if benchmarks are lying, how are you supposed to figure out which AI is actually better for what you need? Here's the honest answer. You have to test it yourself. I know that sounds annoying, but it's the only real way. Try both tools on a task that actually matters to you. See which one gives you results you can use. That's your real benchmark. But there are a few things you can look for when you're reading benchmark results to at least spot the lies. First, check who made the benchmark. If it's the company publishing the AI, be skeptical. If it's from an independent research lab, that's better. Second, look for whether they published the full methodology. If they're hiding how they ran the test, they're probably hiding something. Third, check if other labs have replicated the results. If only the company that made the AI can get those numbers, that's a red flag. Also, pay attention to which benchmarks are actually measuring something relevant to you. If you care about writing, the fact that an AI scored higher on a code generation benchmark doesn't matter. Look for benchmarks that test the thing you actually use the tool for. And here's something else. Be suspicious of huge jumps in performance between versions. If Claude suddenly jumps from 60% to 90% on a benchmark, ask yourself, did the AI actually get that much better? Or did the benchmark change? Or did data leakage happen? Real progress is usually more incremental. The bigger picture here is that benchmarks have become a PR game. Companies use them to make claims that sound scientific and authoritative, but they're really just marketing dressed up as data. And that's frustrating because benchmarks could be genuinely useful if they were honest. But the incentives are all wrong. There's no downside to publishing misleading benchmarks, and there's a huge upside. You get to claim you're the best. So the next time you see a headline like, "New AI breaks records on benchmark," I want you to mentally translate that to "New AI was tested on a test designed to show it's good." Because that's usually what's actually happening. The real progress in AI is happening in the tools that people actually use and find valuable, not in benchmark scores. When you find an AI that genuinely helps you do something better or faster, that's your real benchmark. Everything else is just noise. If you want to actually keep up with AI without falling for the hype and the benchmarks, subscribe. I break down one of these misconceptions every few days, and I actually tell you what's real and what's marketing.